This is my mom, Lisa Harris, who originally was named Lisa Gaunt. So, where did our family come from?
My side of the family came from Russia and Canada, and your dad's side of the family came from Hungary, and they're English.
So, how do you know this?
From talking to our families over the years and learning about our history.
How many generations can you trace back from your parents?
Probably 4. My family first came over, immigrants from Russia into New York City, and Dad's family came over from Hungary.
Can you recall any names of your relatives?
Well, my grandfather was Theodore Gaunt, and my grandmother was Marion Jasmine, and I'm not sure what Dad's grandparents' names were, but his cousin has a family tree that goes back many, many generations.
Where were these people born? Your side of the family, where were they born?
My side of the family, my mom and dad were both born in Jersey City, New Jersey. And Dad's side of the family, his dad was from Queens, New York, and his mother was from New England.
Where was your grandpa and grandma from?
Russia. They came over. They were immigrants.
When were their birthdays? Do you know?
My grandfather was in the late 1800s, and the same with my grandmother too. They both passed away in their 90s, which was about 30 years ago. Your grandfather was born in 1932, and your grandmother was born in 1936 on my side of the family. And your grandmother, Sally, your dad's mom, she was born in 1934. And your grandfather, Joe, who's deceased, was born in 1934 as well.
Do you know anything about your great-grandparents?
Not really too much. They passed away when I was younger, so I didn't really get to know them.
Okay. Do we have any veterans in our family?
We do. My dad was in the Korean War. He was a ranger. And Dad was in the Navy. He was in the United States Navy as a pilot.
Do you have any interesting stories about your family?
Not really. They were just your average family. But our family, we had a history. We had a big fire back about 20 years ago, where you weren't born yet, but your siblings, your 3 brothers, were home, and the house burned down, and they got out just in time. So we had to start our lives all over again because we lost everything except the Bible, which blew out of the window, and the lawnmower.
What about Grandpa Tom in the Korean War?
He was a very important person then.
So was he in the Korean War, or
he was in the Korean War? Yes, he was on the battlefields.
He has scars on his head, right?
Yes, he was in an explosion, and he had traumatic brain injury, which he fights with today.
Okay. So do we have any genealogical records?
We do. From one of Dad's cousins he keeps a family tree, and it goes all the way back many, many, many generations, and he studies it all the time, and he's always finding new things.
Yeah. Do you know where they are, the genealogical records?
Well, I don't have access to him, but he lives in New England, and he has a whole library of our history. Your dad's side of the family.
So talk to me about your Jewish religion. in your family?
Well, I have some relatives that were actually in the war. They were in concentration camps. And my whole entire family is Jewish.
So, did they describe anything about the concentration camps? Did you
Yeah.
ever get to talk to them?
Oh, yes. My mother has a friend that actually has the serial numbers on her arm. Everybody was given a tattoo on their arms. And she watched her whole family die right in front of her eyes. And she was very lucky that she got out. One of the soldiers liked her and he let her out. And I have another friend whose dad had the similar situation. He saw his whole family be murdered, and they were shot and thrown in a hole. And he ran actually between a whole bunch of soldiers and got out of the camp. And he lived on his own for about 3 years, living out of garbage cans on the street until a family took him in.
So, were your ancestors Jewish too?
Yes, all the way back.
Okay. Well, thank you.
Bye.
Tell me about your Aunt Adrienne.
Well, her parents, my grandparents, when they came over, they were immigrants and they settled into Jersey City, New Jersey, and my grandfather worked in a furniture store. They were very poor. So poor that my mom and her sister, that were about 3 years apart, had to share clothes and shoes. They only had one pair of shoes. And so one would go to school one day and the other would go to school the other day. And it was just really hard for them living. So my aunt started babysitting, and after she put away $500, she walked to a factory in Jersey City where they make makeup, and she created her own makeup line. And she got herself to be in all the major department stores, which at the time was Bloomingdale's, Macy's, Saks Fifth Avenue. And it grew so big that she wrote 2 best-selling books and became very, very famous. She was on a show called The Merv Griffin Show and Oprah Winfrey. And she was voted one of the top 10 most successful women in America. She was invited to have dinner with President, First Lady Ronald Reagan.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Joe Harris. I'm Danielle Harris's father, and she asked me to speak a moment or so about my family history. On my father's side, his dad is born and raised in Budapest, Hungary, and his father and grandfather before that. And my cousin Greg actually traced down the family tree into the early 1700s. You couldn't find out anything prior to that due to records being destroyed in fires set by the Turks during their many wars. My grandfather came over here in late 1920s and then established his home in the Bronx, New York. My mother's side, her father was from Canada, and her mother was family was from England. And her mother was born in England and then moved to Quincy and was raised in Quincy, Mass. So my mother's side, or as far as Danielle's grandmother, English/Canadian, and the Canadian as far as her dad, grandpa, originally was from England, I think a few generations prior. And my father's side was from Hungary. Hope that helps.